So let me start by asking the question, why? Why is it so important that we engage or strengthen cooperation with like-minded allies and democracies? Well, there are two reasons that I think are important to consider. The first is we're entering this era of great power competition that you see a lot of. The term is thrown about in policy circles. But what it means is that we're facing a time where we're seeing pushback from autocratic powers, leading powers like Russia and China, who have a lot of influence in the world. China, in the case of China, influence that's growing as their economy grows and as they wield greater influence in international institutions. And Russia, which even though it's a much smaller power as measured by GDP, still has considerable resources to influence outcomes and shape the way in which nations engage, particularly in Europe and elsewhere around the world, through asymmetric measures and various other ways, as we're seeing with election meddling, even as we speak here in the United States. So we're facing a time in which we're seeing a lot of pushback for what we believe in as democracies, for how we want to see the world engage. And that means that we need to work in a way that's bringing together a coalition of allies and partners to address those challenges. And therefore, in an era of great power competition, the United States can't go it alone. We have to go. We're in a much stronger position if we have partners that see the world in similar ways and that are prepared to act with us to leverage our own influence. And then the second reason why it's important to engage is not just because there are threats that we need to deal with, but because it's in our interest to find other nations, to work with other nations, to solve some of the challenges that we're trying to face, which we know in a globalized world we can't do by ourselves, whether it's the pandemic and the scourge of the coronavirus that we're all suffering through today, whether it's terrorism, as we've seen over the years, nuclear proliferation, climate change, building an open global economy. Those are important ways that affect Americans in their everyday lives, in which we cannot succeed if we're not working more closely with allies, and we don't have a grouping of partners who can help us achieve the goals that we're seeking. We may be a superpower, but we're not omnipotent, and we can't succeed if we're by ourselves. America alone won't work. So therefore, I think it's important to have structures. It's important to have this mindset that we want to work with allies and partners, and then that brings me to the notion of how and where do we go? How do we build the kind of system to bring that power and influence of our allies together in an organized way? It really starts with a mindset, first and foremost, that it is important to work with these kinds of partners, whether it's across the Atlantic or across the Pacific, North America. The democratic community can be small or large, but the mindset of we want to cultivate relationships and build support with those partners, that's the starting point. We can do that by either using existing platforms, international structures or entities that exist already, or building new ones. And I think some combination is what we believe will be most effective.